The last video looked at the complexity of animal cultures and the complex thinking required to survive and raise young in a changing and unpredictable world. It demonstrated the necessity for learning, remembering, planning, individual decision-making, and awareness of purpose. An awareness of the past and future, and the ability to measure time. This video will explore the complex emotions associated with the challenges of being an individual decision-maker who reflects on the past and thinks about the future. We now know that, like us, animals use memory of the past to guide decisions and act in anticipation of the future, motivated by future rewards and expectations. This anticipatory and reflective thinking leads to a range of complex emotions and mindsets, such as worry about the future, disappointment and frustration when expectations aren't met, optimism, determination, and innovation when things don't go to plan, gratitude when unexpected help comes along, vengeance when others intrude or interfere, and the need to control and change one's situation. Individual decision-making is accompanied by anxiety and regret, and imagination leads to thinking of what could be and could have been. The complexity of these emotions over time shapes who animals become and the trajectory of their lives. Just like us, animals are motivated by reward and make decisions by evaluating the costs and risks versus the value of future rewards. This complex ability has now been demonstrated across the species. Most animals learn and store information about space and time to predict the occurrence of events. They can anticipate the timing of rewards and hold out longer to receive greater rewards. The ability to estimate time intervals has been demonstrated in a variety of species. Hens can estimate the time to a reward when given a visual signal in advance and can accurately measure 6-minute intervals. Animals give up immediate gratification in anticipation of a greater reward later in time and are capable of demonstrating admirable qualities such as patience and self-restraint. Among humans, the ability to sacrifice immediate pleasure for future gain is called resisting temptation and is taken as a sign of maturity. Birds are also capable of it. Both parrots and chickens chose to wait for a larger food reward later, instead of receiving a smaller reward immediately. Chickens don't just live in the present, but can anticipate the future and demonstrate self-control. An ability to show self-control improves an animal's survival in their natural environment and would be expected to have been selected by evolutionary processes. Chickens not only anticipate rewards, but rank the quality of different rewards and express behavior differentially in response to reward type. These differences seem to reflect the incentive value of the rewards. The ability to anticipate the future causes both positive and negative emotions, depending on the event being anticipated. Positive anticipation leads to excitement, and negative anticipation leads to worry. Rats learn to anticipate rewards and show an increase in dopamine activity when anticipating the opportunity to play. Researchers who taught rats how to drive found that rats showed positive anticipation about driving lessons. We found that the rats had an intense motivation for their driving training, often jumping into the car and revving the lever engine before their vehicle hit the road. In anticipation of the chance to drive, the rats eagerly ran to the side of the cage, jumping up like a dog does when asked if he wants to take a walk. They appeared to be feeling something positive, perhaps excitement and anticipation. Most of the rats chose to take the less efficient path of turning away from the food reward and running to the car in order to drive to it, instead of making a shorter journey by foot. During anticipation, i.e., the period during which an animal expects the event, animals can express how they feel about this event by showing anticipatory behavior. One study demonstrated that pigs anticipate unpleasant experiences they have had before and exhibit negative anticipatory emotions. Their pen mates pick up on these emotions and have the same emotional response to the future event, even if they haven't experienced it themselves. Apes and elephants, dogs and cats can be consciously aware of their fears and can think about them. Do animals worry and lose sleep when they're troubled? Of course they do. There's plenty of research that shows clearly that non-human animals worry about various events that are happening in their lives, and that they lose sleep when they are uneasy, anxious, distressed, troubled, or on edge. Both domestic and wild living animals worry. Animals worry about their young, and when there are youngsters around, the females are more vigilant and rest less than other females. The potential for predators lurking causes constant worry. And animals worry less when they are in bigger groups, where there are more eyes and ears, or when there is someone else keeping watch. Another of the emotional consequences of being able to anticipate the future is disappointment. Animals are motivated by reward. They anticipate reward. And they are disappointed if expectations are foiled. Animals start forming expectations early in life. For example, animals fed by their mothers come to expect and anticipate being fed. The ability to form expectations and then react to those that are violated is a complex cognitive capacity. An expectation is knowledge that one event precedes a second or leads to a particular outcome based on past experience. A study to determine whether lambs are able to form expectations and whether they respond emotionally when those expectations are violated found that when an expected reward for completing a task was less than expected, the lambs responded emotionally with increased cardiac responses and locomotion, particularly when they had previously experienced an increased reward. These findings demonstrate that not only can sheep form expectations and have feelings about whether those expectations are met, but also that they can follow a fairly complex set of events leading to an outcome. Horses demonstrated frustration at having to wait for an anticipated reward and disappointment at the loss of the reward. Animals in nature likely face situations that are frustrating in that they cannot always predict what will happen. Researchers discovered that squirrels get wildly frustrated. Each year, they bury hundreds of nuts, only to find most of them gone or stolen by other squirrels when they return. The more frustrated the squirrels became, the more they flicked their bushy tails. When nuts are out of reach, squirrels flick their tails and start problem solving. Squirrels who lose their nuts to thieves come up with new solutions. They bury fake nuts to fool thieves, scatter nuts over vast areas, or put them in hard-to-reach locations, under bushes, or in muddy areas. Squirrels are persistent when facing a challenge, and given their challenging conditions, they seem to be pretty optimistic. Just as with humans, animals are more likely to be optimistic when they have control over their situation and the ability to overcome challenges and solve problems. For example, researchers found that crows can become more optimistic after making tools. Researchers have found that both birds and mammals can be optimists or pessimists. And optimism is not just linked to their environment, but to their level of control over their environment. Researchers showed that chickens that grow up in an environment that they perceive as more diverse and manageable retain an optimistic view of life and cope with stress better than individuals that grow up in more sterile surroundings. We believe that the possibility of controlling the situation better resulted in these individuals being able to maintain optimism even after a period with increased stress. One of the most fundamental motivators in both human and animal behavior is the desire for agency, choice, and control over one's environment. Animals like to have control over their environment, and it can positively impact their well-being. Restricting an animal's agency and ability to make choices results in frustration, boredom, and depression. While wild animals make a myriad choices every day: where to go, what to eat, where to sleep, who to mate with, animals in captivity have the vast majority of choices made for them by their human caretakers. They also have little to no control over the environment surrounding them, including stimuli like lights, music, and temperature. To alleviate the effects of this lack of control, captive animal caretakers have started to find ways to give control back to the animals. Researchers have found that just having choices does have a positive effect on behavior, even when animals do not take advantage of them. Chimpanzees and gorillas responded positively to being given the choice to go outside, even if they chose not to. The gorillas were calmer with increased choice over where to spend time. In all of these studies, the animals, giant pandas, polar bears, goats, sheep, great apes, and monkeys showed positive responses to being provided with the ability to make a choice, irrespective of whether they exercise that choice. Monkeys showed a significant increase in calm activity patterns when they were given control over their cage lighting compared to the group that had no control but received the same light schedule. In baboons, listening to radio music showed reduced stress in terms of heart rate. Control over the sound may be an important factor. Monkeys that were able to control continuous white noise had lower cortisol levels than monkeys without the ability to turn the sound on or off. Pigs taught to use a thermostat chose to set the temperature to their own preference for both day and night. Animals also prefer to make their own nests and do the work themselves. Researchers have also found that animals in captivity will work for things they like. Laboratory-housed mice show a preference for additional space and will work to obtain it. It has been shown in humans that even a perception of control has psychological benefits in the absence of actual control. Providing animals with choices can positively impact their psychological well-being, and having control increases optimism about being able to improve their situation. Complete loss of control leads to pessimism and depression. Birds can get depressed and, as studies have shown, a neglectful or bare environment can even make them pessimistic. Performance on a categorization task suggests that removal of environmental enrichment induces pessimism in captive European starlings. Depression is common in captive animals, and the lethargy and lack of cognitive action that have come to be associated with captive animals are symptoms of depression. Researchers showed that early experiences influence which individuals become pessimists. After separation from their mothers and hot iron dehorning, calves showed pessimistic judgment bias, meaning they interpret ambiguous situations negatively, similar to a pessimistic bias in humans. Cows show personality traits like pessimism and optimism from a young age, and their inherent outlook can predict their ability to cope with stress. It's interesting to us to come to understand how complex these animals are. These are highly developed mammals that have been solving problems for a long time. If anything, it reflects poorly on us that we're surprised these animals are smart. Of course they're smart. When animals who have no control over their situation have given up hope, sometimes unexpected help comes along. And just like us, animals experience gratitude. Like this bull, who was released from a tiny stall where he had spent most of his life. After a pig was rescued from a factory farm, he could barely contain his gratitude. After being rescued and taken to a sanctuary, this kangaroo shows gratitude to her caretakers every day. After this man saved the life of an injured swan, when reunited years later, the bird had not forgotten the act of kindness and was captured displaying its gratitude. Animals have different ways of showing gratitude. Through affection, through gestures, or even gifts. Birds give each other gifts as tokens of appreciation. Jaybirds who mate for life give each other gifts as tokens of appreciation throughout the year. Gratitude is a complex, self-reflective emotion in which individuals acknowledge, "You did this for me in the past, so I will do this for you in the future." Rats repay favors and pay helpers with food. If one individual supports another, there's a correlation between support given and received on a long-term basis. Ravens build up social capital that is reciprocated over time. Favors in the form of preening or aid during a fight are selectively given to ravens in good standing with one another. A study published in the journal Animal Behavior tested how well a raven could judge a deal that was fair or unfair, and found the canny corvids remember people who give them unfair deals and may try to take revenge. As humans, vengeful actions are common and often driven by emotions. However, most of us don't realize that animals can also have similar vengeful tendencies due to their own emotional states. Many social species, in order to maintain accountability, keep track of who's pulling their weight. Cows, one study found, can maintain a beef for years with heifers who wrong them. Grudge-like behavior has been spotted in creatures as diverse as cuttlefish and great cats. When a captive-bred female tigress escaped from the zoo's enclosure after a few drunk men threw objects at her, the tigress only pursued the males who had ridiculed her as she fled. Another animal known to rally herds when it's time to retaliate is the African buffalo. If a lion injures a member of the herd of buffaloes will retaliate against the lions. There are well-known examples of elephants attacking other animals, such as buffaloes, that have harmed a member of their herd. Elephants also kill poachers. One elephant had such a personal vendetta against a woman believed to have been involved in poaching. The elephant not only killed the woman, but came to her funeral to attack her corpse. Buffalo have stalked hunting parties, hiding in wait and ambushing their attackers. Just like elephants, buffalo have exceptional memories. They never forgive and almost always seek revenge. They have been known to circle back, stalk and attack or kill hunters. This conscious decision demonstrates that these animals have a conscious awareness of death. Death is a part of life and a constant threat to animals living wild. Captive raised animals reintroduced to the wild don't live very long because they are unaware of all the potential death sentences. But animals living wild within knowledgeable cultures know very well who or what has the potential to kill them, and their fear of death is learned. Survival rates are as low as 11% for captive-bred marsupials when they are introduced into the wild. These animals are so naive, they show absolutely zero vigilance behavior. They learn to fear predators by watching them kill other members of their group. Just as animals learn about birth through observation, so do they learn about death. And they are constantly learning about different and novel threats to their lives. Takahe chicks learn to avoid stoats after witnessing a model stoat kill a takahe chick. Deer learn to avoid areas where they are frequently hunted during hunting season after seeing others get shot. Elk learn to avoid the risk of death from newly introduced wolves after watching the wolves take the lives of other elk. Moose learn to change their birthing sites after seeing their babies killed by wolves. Dingoes who see others die from poisoning avoid baited meats and teach their young to do the same. Rodents learn to avoid traps that they have seen dead rodents in, and mice will avoid traps if they still carry the smell of death. For animals living wild, learning how not to die is the first and most important lesson in survival. Astoundingly, some researchers claim that animals have no awareness of death, when defeating death is the foremost purpose of animal cultures. Animal groups living wild spend most of their lives trying to avoid death. learning how to avoid it and how to protect their young from it. Philosopher Susanna Monceau writes, "The concept of death is easier to acquire than we usually presuppose." The concept of death, far from being a uniquely human feat, is a fairly common trait in the animal kingdom. Dogs and cats can detect subtle signs of illness or impending death through heightened senses. The New England Journal of Medicine published an article about a cat who could predict death. The cat would sit by patients who were soon to die, and patients died hours after the cat sat down by their beds. The awareness of death is not just linked to emotions such as fear and worry, but also to grief and regret. Researchers found elevated levels of glucocorticoids in baboons who had experienced the death of a loved one. In humans, this is associated with bereavement, so it is likely that baboons also grieve their dead. And as with grieving humans, comfort from their social group helps lower the levels of these stress hormones. Scientists have documented some form of death response in seals, manatees, dingoes, horses, dogs, house cats, and more. Striking examples include 27 adult giraffes holding a vigil for one dead baby giraffe, elephants from 5 different families visiting the bones of one of the dead, a group of 15 dolphins slowing their speed to escort a mother dolphin carrying her dead calf, and a strange case of 2 ducks rescued from a foie gras farm who formed a friendship at their sanctuary home. When one duck died, the other lay with its head on the other's neck for hours. To qualify as grief, surviving individuals who knew the deceased must alter their behavioral routine. They might eat or sleep less, or act listless, or agitated. They might attend their friend's corpse. Later, the humans might visit the grave, ditto the elephants. The trajectory of human lives may be permanently altered by the death of a key family member. Ditto again, elephants, wolves, and apes. A grieving chimpanzee just didn't want to be with anybody for several weeks. He seemed to go into mourning. When a lemur dies, for the whole family it's a tragedy. His mate gave the lost call over and over. When they are really lost, they give it less often and it's higher and more energetic. But this was a low whistle, mournful, haunting, over and over. Over 5 days, the lemurs returned to the body 14 times. An African parrot who sat with his favorite human while she was dying screamed all night after she passed and didn't leave the bed. Donkeys have been recorded wailing for their dead. Cows gather around dying members of their herd and show obvious signs of grief. A bull was recorded wailing at the discovery of a loved one's skin. The wailing of grieving cows separated from their calves is sometimes so loud, farmers are fined. Sea lion mothers, watching their babies being eaten by killer whales, squeal eerily and wail pitifully, lamenting their loss. The grief that animals feel for the loss of loved ones, and particularly their young, is made more complex by the fact that animals feel regret for wrong decisions. In their daily lives, non-human animals face situations requiring a choice in which they must account for both the potential payoffs and the potential costs associated with pursuing a certain course of action. Emotions experienced after choice play a crucial role in shaping decision-making under risk. There is neural and behavioral evidence of regret-like emotions in both rodents and macaques. Researchers have proved that just like us, animals regret bad decisions. Both behavior and brain scans demonstrate they can reflect on certain wrong choices. And like humans, rodents linger over what might have been. If rats can feel regret, what about other animals? Researchers speculate that any mammal might be capable of the feeling because they have many of the same brain structures as rats and humans. Regret is something we think of as very human and very cognitive, but we're seeing that the rats are much more cognitive than we thought. Like humans, monkeys wonder about what might have been. Monkeys experience regret and can learn by imagining alternative outcomes to their actions. A professor of neurobiology at the Yale School of Medicine had a hunch that animals have the capacity to imagine alternative outcomes without having experienced them. He found that monkeys can learn by imagining alternative outcomes to their actions. Monkeys, like people, have would have, could have, should have thoughts. I think animals do experience regret, as defined as the recognition of a missed opportunity. In the wild, these abilities may help them to recognize when they should forage in different areas, or find a different cooperative partner who will share the spoils more equitably. To imagine is one of the remarkable things that humans can do. Now we have found that animals can do it too. Rats possess the ability to voluntarily picture locations away from their current position and plan for future scenarios in the same way humans likely do. Rats can voluntarily recall past events and imagine future scenarios. The ability to think about the future and reflect on the past is shared across the species. And just as we share similar brain structures, we share similar minds, with the ability to imagine, remember, and dream. MIT researchers have proved that animals also have complex dreams, which demonstrates that animals are capable of reevaluating their experiences when they are not in the midst of them. We know that they are in fact dreaming, and their dreams are connected to actual experiences. Another intriguing finding was the activation of the amygdala during REM sleep. This implies that birds, like humans, may experience emotional content in their dreams. Many other mammals, including rats, cats, dogs, and non-human primates, experience nightmares following traumatic events such as death. Rats are awoken by dysphoric images that taunt them and haunt them in their sleep. Researchers found rats experience nightmares in the wake of physical and psychological abuse. Rats, it seems, dream not only of their own suffering, but also of that of their friends. The complex nature of emotional experiences that animals share with humans is ultimately demonstrated by a shared emotional response to music. Music is often said to be the language of emotion. In rodents, classical music didn't just reduce anxiety, but increased learning ability, known as the Mozart effect. Pigs exposed to music displayed a wide variety of emotional responses depending on the harmonic structure. 20 emotional states were initially included. Consonant music caused the pigs to experience positive emotions, whereas dissonant music caused negative emotions. Chickens also prefer the kinds of sounds that humans tend to find pleasant and prefer consonant to disconsonant chords. Studies found that chickens prefer classical music to silence, and the playing of happy music increased happy behavior, whereas playback of sad music increased sad behavior. Animals from almost every species have been shown to respond emotionally to music, usually having a preference for classical. Animals appear to pick up on the subtle nuances in classical music. Rats can recognize melodies even if the pitch or tempo changes, and can recognize the similarity between notes played in different octaves. Researchers found rats can recognize songs and were able to keep tempo to Mozart by bobbing their heads along in time, and that goldfish can distinguish between the music of Bach and Stravinsky. Music and sound communicate emotional information that is recognized across species. The beauty of birds and their songs has inspired classical composers to write music that the birds themselves find beauty in. The incredible complexity of animal emotion has been increasingly revealed over the last few decades. We've worked out that they are much more complex, much more intelligent, much more sentient than we ever really thought they were.